Hello, everyone. For the quality of the call, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. And if you want to speak and unmute yourself, it's *6 on your phone. And then there's also the chat window that I will encourage folks to use that as well. We will give it one more minute to allow some more folks to jump on. Okay, it's 5:30. I expect we'll have some folks joining us as we go along. We had just over 50 participants at our 4 o'clock town hall. So thank you all for joining us at the 5:30 time. I've muted everybody just for the quality of the call. If you want to unmute yourself, it's *6, or you can type in the chat to raise your hand and say, hey, please unmute me so that I can speak. And I thought what I would do is just go ahead and start, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So first of all, just want everybody to know that you're not in this alone. It has been a wild week. I don't think any of us saw any of what has transpired coming. And so the purpose of this meeting is to primarily say, you're not alone. You've got a family, you've got friends, you've got us, and we're all in this together. And then to kind of update you on where things are in terms of FIRST and the season. So officially, FIRST has suspended all programs from now until the end of April, and they have canceled outright Houston and Detroit. What they mean by suspended is they are leaving the door open for events to be rescheduled. So with that said, the Board of Directors of FIRST North Carolina is committed 100% to, if at all humanly possible, to making sure that our students get their state level experience before the next season rolls out. What does that mean? I don't know yet. There's a lot of things that we just don't know. We don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know how long we're going to be told not to have gatherings of more than 10 people. We just don't know so many things, but do know that FIRST North Carolina in some way, shape, or form is committed to doing our best to make sure that you get your events. Can I say for sure that's happening? No. I don't want to get everybody's hopes up. Yes, we're going to definitely do our events, and something comes sideways again and we can't do it. But do know that we are going to do our best to make sure that that happens. FIRST headquarters is trying to figure out how this works, what this looks like on a global level. You know, what happens if North Carolina decides to finish out our events and wants them official and Texas doesn't? We don't know. Would that be allowed? We don't know. Is that something that's possible? Yes, I think everything is possible, but do we have hard and fast answers? We don't know. Lots of different scenarios that we're looking at, lots of different approaches to this, but until we have more information, we're kind of operating in a vacuum. And for those that know me well, I don't like to solve problems that I don't have any data for. So we're waiting for data from headquarters, from the CDC, from the WHO, from everybody, so that we know what it is we're dealing with and what we can do to move forward. So with that said, I'd like to go ahead and open it up, either the chat window or to unmute yourself, and open up the floor for conversation and discussion. And I know if we were all in a room together, y'all wouldn't be this quiet.
I'm thankful you kept us informed, Marie. I know it's a hard and difficult time on everybody, but I'm thankful you have kept us informed.
Doing our best.
Y'all have done great.
It's really hard when, you know, the information you have an hour later is obsolete already. We thought for sure our universities were good to go, and it was our high school we were worried about. And an hour later, it was the universities that had canceled, and the high school saying, yeah, we're good to go. And then, you know, two hours later, it's completely canceled by First. So we are not using the word canceled. We are using the word postponed until they tell me that there is absolutely positively no way that we can make events happen for your students. I'm going to keep using postponed until we figure out that we absolutely positively can't.
I hate to keep speaking, but did you see the governor's memorandum today or executive order today?
No.
It's stated that in dining restaurants, in other words, going into a restaurant, is they've closed that. You can only dine or get takeout or delivery, and that's for the next 8 weeks.
Oh my!
That started at 5 o'clock today. Just
so that means students aren't going back to school for at least 8 weeks.
And Campbell University ordered the students out of the dormitories by 5 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah, the entire UNC school system has said if you don't need to be on campus, please leave.
So we live in interesting times. I shared with the last group that the generations are defined by the defining moment historically that happens when you're between the ages of 8 and 18. So for the one generation, it's the moon landings. For another generation, it's 9/11. For another generation, it's the Great Recession. I think we have found the defining moment for this generation of students. And I would like us to keep in mind that we don't know how this is going to impact and shape this group of students. But this is their where were you when moment. So question, First has asked us to collect questions from teams. And then we have a portal that we're using to submit, because right now headquarters is pretty much on a lockdown for all communication while they try to sort this out. So if you have questions that you'd like me to bump up the food chain to headquarters, now is a great time to ask.
Marie, it's a logistical.
Roy. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Marie, I wanted to know if First has said anything about refunds for state tournament fees.
Okay, so the first policy, and they've been making
is no refunds. I understand.
However, the state championship, they aren't answering that one directly yet because we're all using postponed. So my best guess is that somehow, some way they will make that particular fee right for those teams that have already paid their state championship fee. Hopefully that does not affect a whole lot of teams at this point. But until they figure out whether or not we will be allowed to have an event and whether or not that event would be considered official, there will not be a definitive answer on the state championship fee.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Hey, Marie, just a question. Yeah, just
Uh-huh.
a question. First of all, thank you for putting the kids first and not just throwing in the towel. And like some organizations, I think would have. I think, you know, it shows the fight that you guys have, which is awesome for the kids. One question would be, and you may not know this, but do you have a definitive drop dead in mind? Let's say, hypothetically, it needed to spill into the fall, into the next school year. Is that within what you consider the scope of possibilities or not a possibility?
Let's see, next year's kickoff is January 9th, I believe. That gives me till January 8th.
Okay. That answers it.
And along those lines, because this question came up with the last group, is what about our seniors?
Right.
Well, good question. Do we have seniors this year? If school does not go back in session, are they going to be allowed to graduate? I think there are some really giant global questions here. But we in North Carolina will not pay any attention to whether or not they have graduated if our event happens in September, October, November.
Okay.
It's my belief that if they were eligible to be on a team during the regular season, they are eligible to play on that team whenever we manage to get these events into there.
Better news than
That's
that.
amazing. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah.
So, because, at the end of the day, it's what's best for our students. And so along those lines, keep in mind that, and I'm going to mute everybody again because we're getting a lot of background noise. So hang on a second. There we go. So I had to mute you all so I could unmute myself. Keep in mind that it's important to spend some time talking to your students about what we're going through and to acknowledge their feelings of loss and grief. I know that when this was all coming down, I know I felt incredibly numb. It probably didn't help that I had a version of the flu for a week. But then I felt like I'd been sucker punched. And then I definitely have gone through a couple of days of grief. And for our students, this is their Christmas when we have our events. This is their chance to be with their family, with their tribe, with their group. And the rug's been pulled out from under them. So please make sure that you're spending some time virtually with your team to help them process their grief, process their feelings of disappointment, process their feelings of anger that this has happened. All of their feelings are valid and need to be acknowledged and processed. So please do that as well. Okay, you can unmute again if you have something to say or a question to ask. Please keep them coming.
Oops. Hi, Marie, can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Hey, how are you? It's Saida Fuentes from ICE Java. So I have a question for you, which I know my students are going to be asking. They wanted to continue working on their robot. When everything was done, we were at a point where we still had 2 weeks to go before our first competition. And they were putting finishing touches on their robot. And then, of course, our school officially closed on Saturday, really, like every other school in North Carolina. But we have a new mentor that's willing to allow the students to work at his home. Is that something that would be a problem? How do you guys feel about that? Because they're going to be asking me that question. I told them that I would have some answers for them by the end of today.
There is no official rule from FIRST that says teams may or may not continue to work on their robot.
Okay.
Officially, I encourage you to follow the recommendations of the CDC and the local government on whether or not it's okay to come together.
Right.
At the end of the day, that is your decision.
Okay.
But there's nothing that says your team can't continue to work on your robot.
Okay.
We had a good question in the chat window. How many North Carolina teams haven't competed at any event yet? I believe it's 15 or 16. Things have been happening so fast, I haven't had a chance to do the official count, but I believe it's about 15 or 16 of our teams have not competed at even one event, including several rookies, which is really hard because they've done all this work and it's such an uphill challenge to do first at all. And then they don't even get to see why they went through all of this. So we are determined to somehow get those rookies into something so they can see it was worth it. Next question.
One thing I would ask is if teams do decide, we've suspended all operations on our team, but if any team does decide to keep, operating and building, I would just ask, keep that stuff off social media and things so that it doesn't negatively impact other kids on other teams. I don't think that's something that they need to know about.
I would tend to echo that. And knowing that restaurants have been closed and they're saying no more than 10 people at a time together anywhere for anything, FIRST is more than robots. And I would remind our students that we are more than robots. We are a community. We are about solving really hard problems. And this is one of the hardest problems, and that the robot really isn't the most important thing right now. Other questions, comments?
Marie, if there are no more tournaments before, let's say, July, for instance, is there anything being put in place or thought about to try and pick the I'm blanking on it. Give me a second. To try and go the Dean's List award winners.
So, that's a great question. Thank you for that. FIRST is actually prioritizing, as far as we can tell, what to do about Dean's List, because they want to make sure that those students have a chance to get their recognition, because it's important for their college applications come fall. So they are batting around, quite a few different ideas on how can we put the kids first and make sure that somehow, some way, Dean's List happens. They are also then looking at possibly chairmen. The key with anything is, if we do a state level event that they do decide to sanction as official, there's no advancement to Houston or Detroit, because that is flat out canceled. So whether they would allow those teams a pass for 2021, we don't know. Pretty much there's a lot that we just don't know yet. But again, our commitment is to helping, at least internally within our state, getting those kids that experience, recognizing that the vast majority of our students don't ever make it to Houston or Detroit. And so what's important for them is our state level experience.
I think that's awesome. And even if they could do interviews by Zoom or something, to continue the Dean's List awards, I think that would be phenomenal at a state level even.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
well,
kind of
I know that they're looking at that nationally. So, and as soon as I hear anything, as soon as they tell us any information, you all will be the first to know. It's those that know me well know that the thing I hate to say more than anything is I don't know. Usually it's like, I'll find out, or let me look into that. And I can't even say that right now. So I apologize that pretty much anything you ask is going to be, I don't know. The question is similar position relative to Woody Flowers Award. They're actually not even talking about Woody Flowers at this point, because the focus is on what do we do for our students first. I expect that somehow they'll acknowledge Woody Flowers. My best guess is that might be 2 next year. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Maria.
Keep them coming.
I was going back to the question about Dean's List and chairmen. So if your team submitted for chairmen but had not yet had an event, and they only do one event, let's say hypothetically that they don't finish off the season, let's say it's only one event that is done to allow the teams that had not competed to compete, kind of, I guess. Will your team still be interviewed for chairmans, or how does any of that? I know you don't know 100%, but I'm just trying to, I guess, get some clarification on that.
I wish I had it for you, Zahira.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know how they're going to think that one through.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the district leaders today had a call, and we explored all kinds of different scenarios of how we might make things work in our various locations.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, we just don't have enough information to be able to make any decisions to give any of those answers.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
Keep in mind that at the end of the day, the guiding principle is what's in the best interests of our students and our teams. Right. That every decision we make will be based on that criteria and very little else.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, the virus.
Yes.
Other questions, comments?
Marie,
Mhm.
if it does come down to it and they decide they can't hold any more events at all this year, the teams, those of us that have not competed, what does that do as far as our fees and stuff?
We do not know. First is making sure that we tell everybody that First does have a no refund policy. With that said, please know that in North Carolina, we will figure out how to help any and every team that this creates financial hardship for. That it is our belief in North Carolina that no team doesn't participate because of lack of funds. That funding I can figure out a solution to. People, not so much. But we will work with all teams to make sure that somehow, some way, you get through this.
Okay.
Yeah, I would second that,
Other
Marie. There's
questions?
probably a number of teams that had set aside budgeting for state competition, and if that doesn't happen, then presumably we've all got extra budget that we can help those teams out for sure.
Oh, thank you for that. That's really a very generous thought. Thank you. Other questions? So what do you do in the meantime? I've got ideas. I always have ideas. So first of all, figure out how to use the virtual tools to still meet with your team. Use your chats, help them process what they're going through. But in the meantime, if we really truly believe that First is more than robots, now is our chance to step up and prove that. So I would encourage your team to take heart and sort of use this found time to work on those projects that you never quite get around to during the season. This is a great time for your team to write its business plan and to write a business plan that's really thoughtful and well thought out and has lots of detail to it. This is a great time for you to work on your succession plan. Last year, every single FRC team that we lost, not one of them was because of money. Every single team we lost was because they lost their coach. So what are you doing as coaches? Worst case scenario, something happens to you, you get transferred out of state, you no longer choose to coach for whatever reason. What are you doing to make sure that your team survives you? What is your succession plan for your team? This is a great chance for you as the adults to figure that out, and then for your students to figure out what's their succession plan. How do they make sure that all these seniors that are getting ready to go off somewhere else, that they don't take everything they've learned over their 4 years of being on the team away? How do they do that brain dump to make sure that the next group coming in has that information and that they keep building on previous skills instead of starting over every 3 to 4 years? This is a great chance to, that video library we keep talking about for the past 10 years. Now is a chance for your team to make a video. Make a 5 or 10 minute tutorial video and send it to us, and we'll get it uploaded to the First North Carolina YouTube channel. Help us build up the repository of knowledge across the state and make those videos and get them to us. Now is a good chance to connect with another team and do some virtual gaming or challenges across each other. Zoom is a free account. It limits you to 40 minutes, but you can get a free Zoom account. Or if you want to do something longer than 40 minutes, shoot me an email and say, hey, Marie, we'd like to use your Zoom account. We are happy to loan our Zoom account out to any team for any reason, as long as nobody else is using it. So please, use that tool, use that resource. And this is a great time to remind your team that it's about more than robots and about more than your team. What are you doing to help your community weather this? I know that when they announced that they were closing all the schools, my first thought went to the school that's literally down the street from me that is incredibly high poverty. And we've been doing junior there for several years. And I know for a fact that at least 10% of that school is homeless on any given day. And for almost every single child in that school, the only meal they get is breakfast and lunch at school. So my first thought when they closed the schools was, oh my gosh, how are these children going to get fed? Now in Guilford County, they are doing pickup lunches and they're taking school buses around and dropping off food at neighborhoods. How can your team help with those kinds of efforts? How can they help with people who are so much less fortunate than maybe we are in our current positions? What is your team, how can your team reach out to some of the elderly who are, hunkered down in their homes and scared? How can you reach out to them virtually to say, hey, do you need us to go to the store for you? Do you need toilet paper if you can find it? How can you help the people in your backyard and in your community? And, maybe your team gets together and they make sure that they're 6 feet apart and there's no more than 10 of them, and they go Christmas caroling down the street just to bring some humor and levity and smiles to the people in their neighborhood. But think bigger picture. And then the other thing I would encourage you to do is to look up citizen science. Citizen science right now is asking for people to donate computer time and access to their systems to help track COVID-19. There are always ongoing citizen science experiments that use lots of computing power. Maybe that's something your team might want to consider participating in. So think about what can you do to help our students know that they're stronger than this crisis, to know that they can have hope that we're going to get through this and be stronger for it, and to know that they can still make a positive impact on their community and on their team. So just be thinking about those kinds of things. I'm off my soapbox now and opening up the floor one more time for any questions or comments. We have a question
Maria?
in the chat window. What should we tell our sponsors? That's a really good question. I would tell our sponsors what they already know. We don't know. We know that our team is going to survive this and come out stronger. I don't believe there's a sponsor out there that isn't going to still be supportive of your team and your students. I think that North Carolina is unique in that we do have some really generous sponsors, and I've already heard from our largest sponsor to say, don't worry about it, we've got your back. We're not asking for our money back. So I would just be honest with your sponsors and tell them we're doing the best we can and we're meeting virtually. These are the outreach activities that we're looking at. This is what we're going to do to keep our team moving forward. But great question. Someone had a question they were going to jump in with?
Marie, regarding the outreach activities, does FIRST have any guidelines they're suggesting on limitations of the outreach activities?
All they are telling us, and all that I can tell you, is to please follow the guidelines of the CDC and local and state government and use your best judgment. And then we had the question of, we all appreciate that you don't have a lot of answers right now. When do you think you might have your next update for us? We have been told to expect an update from FIRST headquarters on March 30th or 31st. I don't expect we'll get much information before that. This really is, it's such an overused word right now, but it really is unprecedented what we're going through. My sources, a couple who are on this call, have indicated that this isn't going away very quickly, that this is at least an 8-week hunker down, if not longer. So I would plan accordingly, and if we all get released into the wild again sooner, it's a bonus versus a constant disappointment. But as soon as I have anything concrete to share, you will be the first to know. Other questions, comments?
I do have one more question. If for some reason we do not do this season, will we be able to use, like a lot of our kids have worked really hard on these robots, will we just do the same thing next season, or will it turn over to something completely different?
We don't know. We just don't know. So I thank you all for taking the time to jump on a call and do a town hall style meeting virtually. I applaud what you guys have done to get to this point. I know what you guys are going to continue to do to support your students. Know that we at First North Carolina and the board of directors, we have your back. We're going to be doing our darndest to make sure that we do what's in the best interest of our teams and our students here in North Carolina. That I am your loudest voice and champion at headquarters, to the point where they're like, oh God, it's Marie again. But you know, we're going to do what we can to make it right for you and your teams. And we will keep you informed. At any time, please reach out with your questions, your comments, your feedback. We're open to any and all ideas for how we can move forward once we are allowed to get together again, groups of greater than 10.
Thank you very much,
Unless anyone
Marie.
has any last minute words, you know, thanks for all that you guys do, and please stay healthy. Namaste.
Thank you, Marie. Thanks again
Thank
for the
you.
information.
Thanks, Marie.
Thank you, Marie.
Hang in there, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
This too shall pass.
It will.
It will.
Just a hurdle.
Thank you, Marie.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Night.
Night.